You're listening to the Visionary Lifestyle Podcast, the show that's dedicated to raising consciousness and empowering you to activate your highest potential. I'm your host, Magda Freedom Rod. Greetings, Rainbow Warriors. I'm coming to you today from magical Bali. I've been here about 3 weeks now, and I've got to say I'm really enjoying the island life. The warm, humid air is so pacifying for my vata, which feels really balancing for me. And you can listen to my Ayurveda episodes if you don't know what I'm talking about. Bali is known for being a concentrated place of healing on the planet, and I'm witnessing it myself and hearing amazing stories from people here about their healing too. I'm looking into offering some retreats here to give you all a taste of the magic. So drop me an email through my visionary-lifestyle.com website if that's something that you'd like to participate in. Our guest today is Ronnie Landis. Ronnie is an author, professional speaker, health and lifestyle transformation coach, and a nutrition and human potential strategist. He's a leading expert in holistic health, natural nutrition, and human potential. He helps people from driven entrepreneurs, athletes, visionary artists, actors and actresses, and intuitive healers, all the way to stay-at-home moms and dads to perform at their best mentally, emotionally, and physically. Ronnie's work ranges from exploring the fringes of cutting-edge health sciences, food-based nutrition, innovative supplementation strategies, and a deep passion for helping people overcome long-held mental and emotional blocks so they can experience every area of their life at their full potential. Ronnie is a public speaker and a teacher, a published author of multiple books, host of 2 popular podcasts, a transformation and peak performance coach, and above all else, a man who deeply values life and has devoted his life to uplifting and inspiring the lives of as many people as he can through his mission, his work, and his message. I've known Ronnie for years through the healthy lifestyle scene in Los Angeles, and I've always regarded him as someone who carries a lot of wisdom and passion for holistic health. I'm grateful we got to share this conversation when I was last in California almost a year ago now. Ronnie drops a lot of specific wisdom in this show, everything from nuggets about Taoist herbs and plant medicine in general, to conscious eating, to the importance of an acid-alkaline balance, and lots more. So it's a good idea to be ready to take some notes if you can. Check out the show notes for links to Ronnie's work on visionary-lifestyle.com/podcast. Enjoy and namaste. Ronnie Landis, welcome to the show.
My pleasure to be here. How are you?
I'm so great. Beautiful day in Southern California, and you're in Southern California right now as well, right?
I am. I'm just on the other side. I'm over here in San Diego, Encinitas, and it is also a very beautiful day. Super excited to be on here with you and to hopefully provide a lot of value to everyone listening.
Yes, that would be great. I'm just going to go ahead and call you the holistic health master right now. I've known you for a long time, and my first impression of you, I just want to tell you, was at Erewhon when you were running the tonic bar, and I was very impressed with your vast knowledge of all the herbs and all those fun ingredients that you were playing with there. So I know that you have some background in Chinese medicine, right?
Yeah, well, I kind of cross the whole spectrum of herbal medicine. So I have a particular focus on Chinese medicine, but not so much Chinese medicine as it's defined classically, but more of Taoist herbalism, which is the original teachings of what we now call TCM or traditional Chinese medicine. It's more of the energetic understanding, the spiritual understanding that every herb has a personality. Every herb and every plant has a particular energy based on where it grows. And just, like Hoshu Wu or Reishi or Shizandra or any of these great herbs, they have their own personality. And so I really was exposed to that part of herbalism. And then, when it comes to more of the allopathic and medical model of Chinese medicine, I definitely appreciate where that comes from. I wasn't formally taught Chinese medicine, but I have a lot of my mentors who are some of the world's leading experts in that field. So I'm kind of standing on the shoulders of a lot of the giants that I just happen to be blessed by, by their mentorship.
Right. Well, I love this take on it. I mean, what we're talking about here is plant medicine, right? One form of plant medicine, and just I think we share this common, appreciation for plants and the medicinal value that they carry. And I love that what you're focusing on is the energetic of the plant, the energetic, inherent energetic quality of each plant. That's really fascinating to me. So beyond Chinese herbs, then, what other kind of herbs are you working with?
Yeah, so herbalism is a massive category of natural medicine. So, for example, you have Chinese herbalism, which most people are familiar with. You have Ayurvedic medicine and herbalism, which comes from India. You have a lot of the shamanistic roots, which come from the Amazon and South and Central America, like Amazonian herbalism, Mesoamerican herbalism, and plant medicines. And there's different categories, so I'll just kind of give you a little breakdown of the different categories of herbalism so people kind of understand how these things all work. There's tonic herbalism, there's inferior or medicinal herbalism, and then there's shamanic herbalism or shamanic medicine. And so when we use terms like plant medicine, I think it's important just to kind of clarify, because a lot of people think that plant medicine is just talking about more of the shamanic and entheogenic types of medicines, which an entheogen, just for everyone's understanding, is like what we would call psychedelic medicine. Entheogen basically means to generate the divine from within or to deepen our connection with the creator. Those are things like ayahuasca and psilocybin mushrooms and iboga and things of that nature, things that are becoming more and more well-known and more well-respected. That's kind of what most people think of as plant medicine. However, there is a much more sustainable and a much more applicable approach to plant medicine, which is the herbal side of it. So there's tonic herbalism, and then there's medicinal herbalism. Tonic herbalism are a category of the most powerful and the most what in Chinese medicine they call superior herbs. And so these are herbs that you can basically take every single day, and they don't have any kind of toxic repercussions. They don't have a lot of toxic alkaloids that can create a burden on the liver. So you can actually take them every day just like regular food, whereas medicinal herbalism, or what they call inferior herbalism, are types of herbs that are very medicinal. They're typically liver supportive, but they also have a lot of strong alkaloids, which are bitter medicines that are in the plant that make it almost impossible to take regularly. So just as an example, garlic is a medicinal herb, and echinacea and golden seal and oregano and olive leaf extract and there's some milk thistle, dandelion root. Those are some very powerful medicinal herbs that you take like as a response to a symptom. So if you have like a cold, or you have some kind of issue going on, particularly in the liver, then you would take something like a milk thistle or a dandelion root. Or if you have an infection like a candida or bacterial infection, you take like garlic extracts, and then that will help. It'll help. It's very curative. It's responsive, but you don't do that all the time. And the tonic herbs you do preventatively. So reishi mushroom, for example, hoshu wu, euphomia, cordyceps, some of those amazing famous herbs. Those aren't something that you would necessarily take if you have a cold. In fact, it's kind of cautioned not to take certain things, certain tonic herbs, if you have some kind of compromised immune system. But when you take it every day, it builds up your immune system, so in the long term, you don't get sick.
Right. There's a difference between supportive or preventative, right?
Yep.
Versus treatment of a symptom, right?
Yep.
Yeah, different herbs for different times. Okay. Yeah, it's such a vast world, herbalism. It's really great to get your voice on here with your vast understanding of this plant medicine world. And yes, I think it is important to make the distinction, as you said, because I think plant medicine is a term that's thrown around a lot right now. And it is, most people see it as the psychedelic sort of herbs. So we have to be, or plants. So we need to make that distinction. So thank you for that. Mm-hmm. But you and I both know that plant medicine is much wider than that. And that's what I want to talk more about is, helping people understand that there is a vast world of plants that can be supportive to us as humans, that we were given this planet full of medicine, right? So we look to people like you to help us to learn how to understand those medicines that we were given. So thank you for what you're doing. Yeah. And I'm really happy to see you progressing with your offering and your new online course, Holistic Health Mastery, that's based on your first book. So you're also training people, right? I mean, you're empowering people on an individual level, but also training people to be, what is the word that you're training them to be?
Well, so that brings up a really awesome part of the conversation that I've really taken a lot of ownership over lately, and that's my coaching practice. Originally, my coaching was much more focused on helping people with particular health conditions. I've worked with people all over the board, from people that just wanted to lose a little weight to people that have stage 3 and stage 4 cancer and breast cancer. And that had been more of a particular passion for me because that's an area I feel like I can make a big contribution and impact in people's lives. Mm-hmm. And what has happened for me recently in that modality of serving people through coaching is that I wanted to create more of an ROI. And I don't mean return on investment. I mean ripple of impact.
Oh, nice.
Yeah. And so I figured that there's a lot of people that are aspiring online entrepreneurs, aspiring coaches and mentors, and they have the same fears and hesitations about really fully owning that and receiving their worth monetarily for the services that they provide. And they have big goals and aspirations, but they're crippled by this fear and this hesitation to fully own their gifts. Mm-hmm. And I really felt it in my heart that if I was going to serve people on a bigger level of the health and vitality message, I actually had to reach the people that were also going to reach other people. Because it's not just about me and my message, it's about supporting everybody through mentorship and empowering other leaders to really lead, and to really voice their perspectives, which are going to help people way beyond the people that I can reach, Mm-hmm, mm-hmm. So that's the work I've been doing. And I'm about to release my first group coaching program called the Conscious Game Changers program. And it's a virtual mentorship program where I work with 15 luminaries in health and wellness-based coaches. And I help them take their business model, their coaching practice, and really in their internal alignment to that next level that they've been wanting to get to, but probably didn't know how to ask for help, or they were too scared, or whatever the case is. We all have these same fears and concerns, and help them upgrade their model of what's possible for their life and for their contribution on the planet.
Beautiful. Okay, that's great. That's a great ripple effect you're having, I'm sure, with that work that you're doing. That's great.
It's so much fun. I love seeing people just like that light that goes on in people's eyes. Like, health is a vibration. Health is an emanation of our personality. It's a radiance. It's a cadence that we have. And so it's not just about what we put in our mouth, right? It's actually about how we carry ourselves and the vibration that we emit. And when we can empower people to actually live their dream, the dream becomes our reality. And therefore, we don't have to escape reality to live in some fantasy. We're actually living our dream. And so for me, that is the most exciting thing.
Yeah, fantastic. I love it. So I was looking through your the curriculum for your course, and there were a couple of things that stood out to me that I wanted to dive into a bit and have you explain some of what it is that you're offering there. One thing that caught my attention was adopting an investor mindset. What is that about?
Awesome. So that's The investor mindset, I remember that video, and there's a chapter in my first book on that. I'm just kind of recapping that in my mind real quick. So the investor mindset is basically this notion that whatever choice we make in our life, no matter how small or how big, is an investment into our life. We're making an energetic deposit with every brushstroke of our thoughts, of our emotional state, and our actual actions that we take. It's actually an investment of our time, resources, and life force energy. And from that perspective, it changes the conversation around nutrition and health practices, where I believe when we change the context of that conversation from kind of this superficial model of vanity, of losing weight, and not that anything that is wrong with that, but there's a deeper driving impulse behind vibrant health and behind proper nutrition. And so when we realize that we're making an investment into our self-love bank account, we're actually learning to love ourselves with the choices that we make. It becomes an investment into our purpose, an investment into our life, opposed to it just being some kind of activity that we do that, helps us feel better about ourselves temporarily, but doesn't really guide us beyond the constraints of our previous identity, if that makes any sense.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. So it's an investment. It's self-love as an investment. It's a long-term investment in ongoing health. And I love that. Deepening that. That's fantastic. Another thing that caught my attention that I was really curious about, because I have no idea what it is that you're teaching, but I think you have 3 points on it on your curriculum, on your website, and that's the 3 stages of progression. Really curious about that.
Okay, awesome. I love talking about this. So the 3 stages of progression, that's a huge theme in that first book that I wrote. And that's the theme that just came to me to contextualize or to organize the overall kind of information that I'm providing. And it goes like this. There's 3 stages of overall progression. What I mean by progression is how we progress in our transformation. And obviously I'm speaking from the context of a health transformation. So stage 1 is detoxification. We have to cleanse our physical body. We got to cleanse our diet. We got to cleanse our lifestyle. We got to cleanse the body of all the obstructions and burdens of all the activities and bad investments that we've made into our body over our lifetime. We got to clean out. We got to reset. We got to delete old patterns and old programs, and we have to detoxify. So that's stage 1. Stage 2 is experimentation. And this is the thing that came to me over my journey of like 10 years on raw living foods and the whole journey that I've had. I realized at some point that for most people, you can't go from 1 to 60 overnight. Like there's an adaptation period. You got to kind of work with what you're given, and you got to work with your metabolism. You can't just switch over to an all vegan diet or an all raw food diet most of the time. Some of us make that switch, but we also sometimes learn the hard way about the reality about cleansing and like some of the things that come up through that. So experimentation I found is really important, because our emotional state has to catch up to the activities that, the detoxification. Emotions are going to come up, and old emotional cravings around food are going to come up. So it's not like we can just go cold turkey all the way. We have to work with our habits. And the experimentation phase, I think, just really helps people kind of choose from the menu board of the universe and try new things and just kind of feel into what feels good at the moment. Like trying a green vegetable juice for the first time is amazing. And then all of a sudden you have a reference for a green vegetable juice, where before, if you've never had one, especially like a cold pressed green juice, if you've never had that experience, then you don't have a reference for it. Therefore, you don't know intuitively if you need a green juice in your day. You know what I mean? Like it's just kind of, it's a concept, but it's not an actual experience until you have it. If you've never really had an avocado or a wild coconut or cacao or an organic amazing salad, anything like that, then we don't have the experience of it. And the experimentation phase simply allows us to have new experiences, to create new reference points. So intuitive eating actually becomes a reality. There's a lot of talk about listening to our intuition and intuitively, following what our body wants. But most people don't even have a sense of what their body wants because they've been filling it up with, they've been numbing it their whole life. They've been medicating their body with food and drugs and pharmaceuticals their whole life. They don't even have an idea of what their body wants. Their body is totally confused. That's an important point.
I'm really glad that you mentioned that, actually, and we're going to get to your third stage of progression, but I do want to pause here because this is a question that has been coming up for me a lot that I'm really exploring as much as I can, which is when people say, I'm listening to my body, or listen to your body, and, I need to eat this to make me feel this way. Or, for example, I need to eat meat to feel grounded, right, is one that you hear a lot.
Totally.
And my question is that really your body talking, or, is that your conditioning, right?
I love the word. I love the way you said that. Is that your paradigm? Is that your old paradigm trying to hold on for dear life? Or is that something inside of you that has a craving, like candida consciousness? That's a huge point. Just on a note about that. Candida consciousness is real. That, when we have infections in our body, those things take over. They can use someone like a remote control, and they can hijack your thoughts and your emotional state and agitate you to the point where you have to medicate yourself with whatever food supports these infectious organisms, but are obviously detrimental to the host. And oftentimes the mind will rationalize a habit that kind of that eases that agitation, but we don't really realize what's going on underneath until we're really honest with ourselves. And actually get kind of expert guidance to figure out, like, okay, do I have an underlying infection going on that's motivating these food cravings?
Right. Yeah. And that's the big question, right? I mean, because if, there's so much talk about listening to your body, and it's my sense that the majority of people are not truly in tune with their body, to the degree that they are getting, accurate input, right, from their body about what they need.
And that's where the detoxification phase comes in. It's like you clean out the slate. You can't expect your intuitive wisdom to kick on overnight if you've never listened to it, you've never tapped into it. It's going to be, it's a new game. So detoxification of the physical body actually creates emotional and spiritual sobriety. When your liver actually gets cleaned out, it's not having to buffer the toxicity of what you put in your mouth every single day. All of a sudden, the anger and resentment and frustration that's housed in the liver starts to get purged out. And all of a sudden, happy emotions start to become accessible. And all of a sudden, you can make better choices because you're in a higher emotional state.
Yeah, fantastic. Okay, so I love that little detour. So going back now, so we have the 3 stages of progression. So we have cleansing, experimentation.
And then stage 3 is integration.
Okay.
And this is the most important thing in our world. When people do massive, we were talking a little bit about power plants like ayahuasca or any of these amazing plant allies that we have access to. One of the things I see with people is this integration piece just gets totally thrown out the window. It's like, because we want the trip, right? We want the experience. We want the transcended experience, but we don't realize, like, we actually have to master this physical embodied experience. And so integration is really like a grounded, like, embodiment of the cleansing and the experimentation phase, where as you experiment with different things, you'll start to find what works best for you with where you're at, and it'll all start to click together naturally and harmoniously, and then we start to integrate those insights. So for example, when you have that green vegetable juice or you have that superfood smoothie, or you have that tonic herbal elixir, whatever the thing is, and it feels good to you, all of a sudden a reference point gets kind of created in your mind and in your body, and then it anchors, and you anchor in this realization that this feels good. And all of a sudden it integrates and becomes part of your ritual. It becomes part of your lifestyle without having to force it into place through willpower. That's the natural integration phase.
Yeah, so you don't even have to necessarily try. Your body just...
You don't even have to do anything.
What's good for it.
Yeah, the only thing you have to do is make the juice or make the smoothie or something, but it becomes like a pleasurable ritual, right? It's not even like you have to really do anything outside of your boundaries. It's just simply like an act and devotion of love, and it just becomes something that's naturally creates immediate results for us. And it's something that's joyful, which I think is other than the normal experience when people are preparing food.
Right. Sadly, we want to get people back into create, when they make the food for themselves, it's an act of self-love, right? Like,
totally.
Yeah, when people are like, I don't have time to eat, and it's, I don't have time to cook.
Saying, I don't have time to make love to my partner. So it's like, what? That doesn't even make any. No, we're gonna. One of the great quotes, or one of the great teachings I got I don't remember if it was Tony Robbins or Jim Rohn or one of those guys, but it was that you will always have time for the things you want to do, and you'll always find ways to not have time for the things you don't want to do.
Yeah. And why is it, you think? I mean, if we just look at this for a minute, why is it that people, sweep themselves under the rug and say, oh, I don't have time to cook? Why do people not care about themselves?
I think, it's such a great question. Thank you for asking that. First of all, from my own investigations of psychology and emotional awareness, I think it's because people devalue themselves. They minimize and marginalize their own value. And they're not really in a state of really what it means to love oneself. I find when we really learn to love ourselves, we'll actually heal ourselves. Actually, that's a quote by my mentor, Gabriel Cousins. He came on my show a little while ago, and that's what he said. He said, when we love ourselves, we'll actually heal ourselves. And so it's like we don't really take full ownership of our life until we realize our true value and what we have to give to the world, and we stop marginalizing ourselves and stop putting other people on pedestals and putting ourselves in a pit. We're just as valuable as anybody else walking this planet, and that's the great lesson, I think, in our time, in our age of living in a cosmetic, kind of plasticized, superficial world where everyone feels like they're less than everybody else and they feel like they're imperfect. I think it just kind of comes back to that primordial wound that every single human being is contending with, is this idea that I'm not enough and I'm not lovable and I'm not healable, whatever the story is.
Essentially. I'm not worth it. I'm not worth the effort.
I'm not worth the organic food. I'm not worth the extra $1. I'm not worth my dreams. I'm not worth whatever it takes to succeed. Like, that's it.
Yeah. Or the time or the effort to cook the healthier version rather than the drive-through, convenient version, right?
Yeah.
Of a meal. Right. Okay. So that's good. I hope this is landing with some people, and we can be reminders for people of just what a miracle they are and how valuable they are and that they are worth the effort. And that's why we do what we do, right? So, okay, a couple other things I wanted to get your insight on. One question that rolls around a lot for me is in regard to hormonal balance. So I noticed that you're putting some emphasis and some teaching into providing hormonal balance. And I'm wondering what your take is on soy in regards to hormones.
Awesome. Yeah, that's a great question. So funny. I was actually just thinking about that earlier today. It just crossed my mind. It hasn't crossed my mind in so long.
I got the memo. See?
Yeah. we're connected. Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. Hormones has been actually a humongous focus of mine for many years, and I've done many lectures on the subject. I will continue to do it. I've written an entire chapter on hormone mastery in my new book, and it's such an important conversation because it's one of the top 3 conversations around longevity and youthening, and that's what my new book's all about. So your question about soy, it's kind of an interesting question because there's different people in different camps.
Right.
And my personal feeling on soy as a category is that it's really no bueno, like overall, like as a normal food staple. It's karmically out of alignment. What I mean by that is that you have an entire rainforest in the Amazon that is being deforested, depleted every single moment of every single day, and they're growing soy in the plantations, replacing the natural ecosystem, which is a devastation on the environment, and then they're shipping over genetically modified soy over to feedlots to feed sick cattle that's not their natural diet, so they're getting sick. They're producing waste products that are possibly the biggest obstruction to the ozone layer. And then they're getting sick, so then they got to be antibioticized. They got to be hormonally injected. These cows are taking synthetic hormone therapy, basically, with testosterone and estrogen. And then they're being chopped up, and then we eat sick cattle. And the way that starts is from the soy plantations. Like, you see those whole long... I know you know this. Like, this is a huge focus of yours. Right. So karmically, it's like, just the energy of it to me is totally out of alignment. Then when it comes to is organic soy okay? For some people, properly fermented miso and stuff, it's great. It's fine. It's totally not a problem. However, there are phytoestrogenic considerations that have to be made, and some people's metabolism is so sensitive to these phytoestrogens that it can, over time, if it accumulates, meaning that they have more soy in their diet than they should, then it can become a problem. I think the biggest problem, though, with soy, if the research indicates anything, is that it's the soy isoflavones that are the typical extracted components that you find in these soy protein powdered formulas. It's like soy protein powders and stuff like that. That seems to be the biggest antagonist for breast cancer related estrogen inflation, like estrogen dominance. And things like the prostate issues as well for men, which are all hormonally driven. These are hormone imbalances we call estrogen dominance. So soy is a big category, and it is a big antagonist. However, I want to give it a little bit of a respect to your question and just say that I don't think it's black and white. However, for me personally, and for anyone that I work with, it's not something I'd recommend simply because it's not necessary. Like it's actually just not necessary. You don't need it. Like if you're worried about protein, we got a million other options that are way better for you than that.
Interesting. Okay. Yeah, I knew you would have a deep answer for that. So thank you. My approach to it has been, because there's so much conflicting information and science out there, it is kind of unknown. And what I just derived from your answer is that it's somewhat individual to the individual, right? How people respond. And it's also a matter of volume, like how much you're actually ingesting. And so what I always recommend to people is, if you're going to have soy, 100% has to be organic, so it's not GMO. Yep. Number 2, fermented, so like tempeh. Tempeh is my soy of choice if I'm going to have soy, which is rare. And then the third is the volume, the quantity that you're ingesting. So rarely. So organic, fermented, and only on occasion. I was just in Bali, and there was like tempeh in every single meal that was being served at this festival that I was at. And I was like, this is way too much soy, and there were big bricks of it. And I was like, it's way too much.
And and those little bricks too, I feel like they're really disturbing digestively. Like, it's just like, it's like, it's like, what is it? They're legumes, so they can be kind of an issue digestively, just like lentils and just like peanuts and these other things can be a bit of they can almost have like a gluten-like reaction or a leaky gut kind of association if you have too much of it for the wrong person. Like, that, it's totally individual, but some people have such a digestive compromise that it'll totally throw things off.
Right. Well, for one thing for sure is we definitely want to steer people away from these, this massive amount of processed soy products that are out there, and certainly the ones that are not organic. Those I just feel like are dangerous.
Totally agree.
Yeah. Okay. All right. So a couple other things I wanted to touch on. The acid alkaline balance. If we can give people just, we could talk about this all day, I'm sure. And, but I would like to just educate people just kind of in a nutshell about what that's about for people who may not be familiar with the concept and just how important it is.
It's so funny. I'm so guided in my life now by synchronicity. It's like, it's actually the only thing that I only make decisions based on synchronicity anymore. And I just find it so interesting because I was actually thinking about this too, the acid alkaline balance. It's like, why am I thinking about that right now? It's I'm not writing about it. I'm not really doing anything about it, but it's just coming up. So there's actually there's a few ways to determine acid alkaline balance or homeostasis. There's 3 ways that this is kind of determined. So I'll just kind of lay that out without giving a whole dissertation on it.
Okay, perfect.
Yeah, it's a deep subject, and it's a fun subject when you really get into the nuances. So the first thing is the basic pH. pH stands for potential hydrogen. Hydrogen is the embryonic formative element that actually makes up all life. All life is dependent on hydrogen. The sun is made mostly of hydrogen, and the earth is mostly oxygen. And so when hydrogen and oxygen meet in the middle, it makes what we call heart. And heart is the union of heaven and earth. So it's kind of an interesting way to start that conversation. When you're in a perfect homeostatic balance, meaning you're in a dynamic balance of polar opposites, hydrogen and oxygen, you're in a perfect state of health. And from an analytical level or from a blood pH level, it's 7.35 to 7.47, I want to say. I haven't looked at that in a little while, but that is the perfect range where your blood pH should be to be in optimal balance. And if your pH goes beyond 7.47, it goes into like 8, that is like dangerous. That's too alkaline. And that actually, you can suffer from alkalosis, which the symptoms often for that are like nerve damage, very hypersensitivity, thermostatic issues, thyroid issues, where the body can't really adjust to different temperatures. We've seen this on the raw food world, like massively, where people get so alkaline, they don't have enough minerals, they're cleansing excessively, so acidic minerals that keep them in balance start to get washed out. They have bone mineral density issues, nerve issues. They're excessively sensitive. They're not in their body, so they're kind of like spacey. We call that demineralization, but that's really like that's an over alkaline type of thing. And then we have acidosis, which is when your blood pH goes below those levels, and then that's like the byproduct of the civilized diet, the quote unquote civilized diet, which is the meat, root, and seed-based diet. Like your typical hamburger is like your hamburger and fries and your milkshake kind of deal. That's like the typical diet. And then most foods that people eat on the standard American diet are made from basically the same stuff, which is all acid-forming, food. And so you need something alkaline to buffer that. For most people, it's like the lettuce on their hamburger is saving their life. It's like that's the thing that's like giving them a little bit of alkalinity to save them. But so that's one aspect, is the blood pH, and that's largely dependent on the mineral concentration in food. So a mineral is either going to be alkaline, it's going to be acid, or it's going to be kind of neutral in between those two. That's one way, is so you want alkaline forming foods for the most part, and then you want some acidic foods on a raw food type of lifestyle. The acid-based foods are going to come largely from nuts, seeds, some fruits like lemons, like citrus fruits, for example, tend to run more acidic, and they have the citric acid, but it's also because they have a little bit more acid-based minerals. So that and those acid-based minerals are very structural. So those like sulfur and phosphorus, those build our bones, and they build the nerve insulation around our nerve fibers, so we have proper brain function and muscular function and that kind of thing. So it's about a mineral balance on our food. The second thing is that there is also an electromagnetic principle to acid alkaline. What I mean by that is that our environment has a big effect on our electrical charge. And one of the most powerful things that I'm constantly recommending people to do is to get connected with their environment. And so when you get barefoot on the earth, we call this earthing or grounding. When you get barefoot on the surface of the earth, it actually, your body uptakes what's called electrons or ions, negative electrons or ions is what they're called. And they're basically like highly alkaline charges of energy that basically support our adrenal glands. They support our nervous system, our endocrine system. They help to thin out our blood more than anything, according to the research. It's actually one of the most cardiovascular protective things that anybody can do, is to get grounded for like 90 minutes a day. They're so effective in that case, actually, that people on blood thinning medication either have to completely get off the medication, or they have to minimize it dramatically if they do consistent grounding, because it starts to thin the blood excessively. If somebody has diabetes, they have hypoglycemia, then this is actually something they need to look into and start making a part of their ritual, because it will help to clean up their blood very, very quickly.
I'm so glad that you went into that, because I was going to also ask you about the sun gazing and the grounding, and I'm so super intrigued by all of that. I mean, what better medicine, right? Take off your shoes and run around on the dirt. I mean, run through a jungle or be on the beach, or
totally.
Just the dirt is the best, right? The actual dirt.
Dirt don't hurt.
Dirt don't hurt. I say that all the time.
It's actually, that's an incredible point, because we have this over sanitation, vaccination culture where people are basically germ phobic. They're afraid of little, even though people are loaded up with infections, they're afraid of getting a cold or touching somebody's hand or whatever the case is. And they're actually shielding their children now. This is like the first generation of children that don't play in the dirt, that aren't running barefoot around the forest or something. I remember I grew up very much I was climbing trees. I was doing all of it, and I've never gotten sick, like not like really sick, like something that really took me out. I've been sick, but in the last 7 to 10 years, I have not been sick. Ever since I've adopted this, the more I'm in nature, the more I'm activating my undomesticated self, and I'm barefoot, I'm connected with nature, I'm submerging myself in ice cold oceans and doing all that kind of thing, sun gazing, all of it. It's actually impossible for any reason whatsoever for me to get sick under any circumstances.
Yeah, we're talking about nature as medicine, nature itself as medicine.
Yeah, imagine that.
Yeah, what a concept. Beautiful. All right, so going back to the acid alkaline just for a second, it's my understanding that all disease thrives in an acidic environment,
Yep.
right?
Yeah.
So we want to, and the standard American diet, the majority of people on the planet, certainly in the United States, I don't know what the statistics are globally, I'd be curious to know, but certainly in the United States, the majority of people are acidic because they're eating the standard American diet. So what's a tip or two of what people can do or eat to create a more alkaline environment in their body? Because I don't sense that most of us are at risk of going too alkaline. I guess, like you said, that some people in the raw food world
it's definitely